Crypto rank. XRP poised for $20 surge as BlackRock buying rumors ignite market buzz. So if you're on social media participating in the XRP community, even if you're just a lurker, you may have noticed that there are a number of people in the XRP community speculating that this indeed is happening, that secretly BlackRock has been buying a boatload of XRP before some major news is actually going to happen. Now, you folks know me. I'm as far opposite from a conspiracy theorist as there possibly could be. Like, there absolutely are a lot of people that are eagerly ready to buy into concepts that are backed by literally nothing. So it may surprise you to hear me say that actually this particular one is plausible. Now, I'm not saying that I outright believe that this indeed is what happened, but it's not in Looney Tunes land, which is kind of exciting. And even if, so let me be clear, there's a reason that this is being discussed as a potential, and even if it's not BlackRock, there is something that has made, there's a fundamental shift that indicates something big has happened almost certainly on an institutional level. Secretly scooping up a bunch of XRP for whatever their purpose may be, and I have some thoughts on that if it ended up being true. BlackRock is the largest asset manager on the planet, with something like $11 trillion in assets under management. Absolutely huge. So that would be quite the vote of confidence. Even if it meant that they were going to launch an XRP ETF, like that would be a big one. I think that could be a huge part of this as well. They're going to offer some sort of, they're going to be some sort of XRP offering, whatever it would be. And so not crazy to think if they're doing that, it might be an ETF. So yes, it would be a big deal if true. And this story, by the way, it's coming off the heels of this story from a week ago. This is a headline from September 8th from the Crypto Basic. Coinbase XRP reserves dropped by 581 million XRP. Pundit alleges that exchange is manipulating XRP price. And so I made a video pushing back on this because I think it's silly nonsense with no proof. And not only is there no proof that Coinbase is trying to manipulate, there's proof to the contrary, in fact. So yeah, it is true that there was a huge change in Coinbase's XRP reserves, a massive drop. They are holding almost no XRP compared to what they were just a short while ago. But it's not what people are thinking here. And so this article here, this new one about it's a lead on from the story from a week ago, because the reason there's a speculation is because of that reduction in Coinbase holdings. And basically the speculation is that it's because BlackRock has been purchasing the XRP, and you'll see why that is at least plausible. There's no proof, but it is a plausible concept. But here they're talking about this. This is a post from chart analyst Haley. It looks like pulled this information from another analyst who I actually do follow, Gert Van Loggen. And they simply wrote here, XRP breakout to $20 plus imminent. Now, I won't be surprised if this market cycle XRP does end up above $20. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't make price predictions myself. But I know that this type of thing is not crazy in crypto. It would not take a ridiculously absurd amount of money flowing into crypto to get XRP at least somewhere close to that. But if you do have an absurd amount of money flowing in, then the analysts who are talking about more like $30, maybe even higher than that plus, maybe they're right. But you'd have to have just an ungodly amount of money flow in. So I won't literally say that's impossible, though those upper price predictions, certainly not my base case. I also am kind of skeptical of some of the lower price predictions. Some people think it's going to be closer to just like $8, $9. And maybe they're right. Like, I'm pretending I don't know. The only reason I say I'm skeptical is I'm skeptical at the extreme. So my suspicion is that XRP is probably going to land somewhere in between, but I always admit I don't know, and we'll find out together here. But let's talk. Let's talk about this big rumor that's going around, the speculation that's going around behind the scenes with XRP, and why actually this might be the strongest sign of institutional interest we've seen in a long time, frankly. So between June and August, Coinbase's visible XRP holdings dropped from about 780 million XRP to just 199 million. So again, that's a massive drop. That's a loss of over 581 million XRP. A massive shift. In fact, it knocked Coinbase out of the exchanges, the top 10 exchanges, in terms of holdings of XRP. But here's the thing. we didn't see a huge crash in price. It didn't move. So where did all that XRP go? Well, some in the XRP community believe that BlackRock is secretly buying XRP, and that this massive reserve drop proves it. So let's break things down and talk about what we actually know. First, does Coinbase do crypto custody for BlackRock? Actually, yes. Coinbase absolutely does crypto custody for BlackRock, and they have since 2022. Back when BlackRock had a partnership, that's when they partnered up with Coinbase through its Aladdin platform. I remember talking about it at the time. And BlackRock doing another thing, jumping into crypto. Yeah, that's big news. And so they use Coinbase Prime to give their institutional clients access to crypto. And so that includes crypto custody, that includes trading, includes reporting. So if BlackRock wanted to buy and hold XRP, Coinbase is exactly who they'd go through. And also with the shift being so big, how many institutions could or would buy that much XRP over that sort of time frame? Not many even could. It's too massive, frankly. So, but here's the part that confused a lot of people. If Coinbase is holding XRP for BlackRock, why would Coinbase's holdings go down? Shouldn't they stay the same, or greater likelihood? Shouldn't Coinbase's holdings of XRP go up? Well, the answer is that most crypto tracking tools only show Coinbase's public exchange wallets, not the private, segregated cold wallets used for Coinbase Prime custody. So when XRP is moved into Prime custody, even if it's still inside Coinbase's infrastructure, it effectively disappears from the public dashboards. It looks like it left Coinbase, but in reality, it may have just gone into deep storage for institutional clients. So that's why you don't see a matching increase in Coinbase's private wallets, because those wallets are typically untagged, they're unlabeled, and designed to protect client privacy. That's the answer. So before there would have been that shift, yeah, you could see how much XRP was being held by Coinbase. But if it shifts into something like this, where in theory, like a BlackRock is purchasing a boatload of XRP, those wallets, you're not going to know. It's like you can follow what happens on the blockchain, obviously. Like you can see anytime XRP moves from one account to another, one wallet to another. Yeah, of course you can. You can still do that. What I'm saying is where it's moving to, it's not known to be owned by Coinbase. We don't know who owns them. That's why it looks like Coinbase's holdings are going down when, in theory, they could be the same or higher, and you just don't know it because it's not being reported that way. That's all that might be. And in fact, that's what makes the most sense. And not that it would necessarily have to be BlackRock specifically, but certainly on an institutional, that makes a lot of sense. So anyway, the big question is, does this mean BlackRock is buying XRP? We don't know for sure. There's no filing, no confirmation, and no proof that BlackRock is the specific buyer. But we do know this. Coinbase and BlackRock already have the infrastructure in place. That's why I said it's plausible. If they were going to do this anywhere, it almost certainly would be with Coinbase. And also consider this. The outflow is structured in a way that looks like institutional accumulation, not random retail activity. Of that, I'm certain. Retail outflows usually happen in much smaller bursts. So it could be like moving like a few thousand XRP or maybe tens of thousands of XRP, at a single time. But institutions, on the other hand, no. Institutions, on the other hand, they move hundreds of millions at once because they operate with it's much larger capital tools. So the wallets receiving this XRP, they look like cold storage or custody wallets. There's no signs of active trading, not constantly sending coins, back to exchanges. It's mostly inbound transfers and then silence. That's exactly when coins are being locked away. That's the behavior you'd expect. When coins are being locked away for long-term holding on an institutional level, yeah, that looks very much like institutional behavior. As far as I'm concerned, That's a virtual certainty. So this isn't like I was reporting a week ago. This wasn't Coinbase manipulating anything. The price didn't move. And even if Coinbase tried that, that would have been the stupidest thing that they could have tried, because their plan would fail. Because once you get rid of that XRP and flood the market, which was what some were speculating, you can only do it once, and then you don't have it. And then there's bad will against you, even if you did that, because when people find out, they're going to be pissed at you. And you achieved precisely nothing if you do that, if you're Coinbase and you do that. And there's no incentive for them to do that. Why would they do that? It doesn't make sense. So, let's talk about what this means, though. You don't move that much XRP into cold storage unless you expect major upside. This kind of behavior screams long-term positioning. It's not short-term speculation. It's not a flip. So this is either a strategic accumulation by one or more institutions, who think XRP is going way higher, or an early move ahead of something big like utility adoption, the settlement use cases, or could be something to do with the ETF speculation down the road. It could be any number of things. So I'm not saying it has to be BlackRock, but I'm saying even if it's not, it almost certainly is a huge vote of confidence. So yes, Coinbase's XRP reserves dropped dramatically. Yes, Coinbase could still be holding it in custody, even though it appears that their holdings went down, especially for institutions. No, we don't have direct proof it's BlackRock, but their relationship with Coinbase and the structure of this move, it absolutely fits. So that's why I said this is plausible. I don't know if it's the case, but something's happened here, and it's really good for XRP, almost certainly. And yes, that's why I keep saying this likely signals that someone with serious money has high conviction that XRP's price will go much, much higher. Much, 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 much